The Open University concept has been gaining popularity in recent years. Not only does it offer convenience because students don't have to worry about transportation or finding housing near campus, but it also allows them to maintain full-time employment while still pursuing their educational goals. The panelists will touch upon how it has helped people worldwide gain access to higher education and what the future holds for this space. I would like to call the panelists and moderator to begin the discussion on a boost in open universities and distance education learning. Please welcome them with a round of applause.
Thank you all so much for staying around. Last but not least, the rise of online universities and distance education learning, the expansion of programs. For instance, my name is Dr. Maurey Bond. I'm the Vice President of Growth for Acacia University. We are an online university based in Arizona. We're also part of a family of universities that stretch from the UK to Europe to the UAE and around the world. Acacia University is our only most recent acquisition, and so we're now moving towards the US market, but we've been around the world. In fact, I'm based, my office is in Dubai, and so I'm vice president of a university in the United States while I call UA home, so only because of online higher education. And so it's a challenge and it's an exciting time. Our distinguished panel here come to this discussion from very unique experiences, and I think they have a lot to share, both in terms of their own background, and also looking at perhaps where we were pre-COVID and post-pandemic, and perhaps the future of online education. So I'd like to turn it over to each of you to share your backgrounds, if you would, and we can go forward.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having us here. My name is Gary Polk. I am the president and founder and CEO of the Polk Institute. And I guess a brief background, I've been teaching for the last 31 years. Prior to that, I spent 10 years in banking.
My name is Tracey Brown. I am a mental fitness coach and author and speaker, and I am part of Polk Institute. I actually am their mental fitness facilitator, and I've got years of education. I've been teaching for probably most of my life, but not institutionally. So I'd like to start with that.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Dura. I'm the COO of the Polk Institute. I've had many lives. I'm retired Air Force. I flew fighters for 22 years. I've been a trainer most of that time. I got into government contracting as a trainer for a couple of years, decided I was done with that, got into education, and I taught middle school and high school for 20 years and retired out of that, which is almost 5 years ago now. And I've been working with the Polk Institute pretty much since then. Like I said, I have a very, very background in a lot of education as well. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank the 8 or 9 of you that are still here to listen to us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
Did you?
All right, Tom Nevill. I am not part of the Polk Institute.
There you go.
Not yet. Right,
Not yet.
No, I have the honor to serve as the Vice President of Academics at Butler Community College, which is in El Dorado, Kansas. So a little bit different perspective maybe from the rest of the panel. But I started my career actually teaching percussion. Graduated here from UNLV with my doctorate, so go Rebels. And then around 2015, I really kind of fell in love with the mission and the values of community colleges and what we do to shape not only our communities but our workforce. So I'll bring that perspective hopefully to this discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. In terms of my own exposure to online programs, I come from a brick and mortar background in terms of my educational experience. I went to regionally accredited universities, and I was kind of like, I went with more of a traditional model, and so I wasn't really looking into online programs until I was able to be the assistant provost for international affairs for Sullivan, which had a hybrid model. And so it got me, and that was 2014 to 2017. So it's only been really recently that I've looked into online and hybrid and other non-traditional methods of program delivery. What brought you into online programs, or what was the fascination that kind of spurred your interest?
I started teaching at Cal State Northridge in 1991, and one of my colleagues also taught at Santa Monica College. And he said, "Hey Gary, online teaching is going to be the thing of the future." So I started teaching online in 2002.
Wow.
I was certified at Dura University for online teaching, and also by the CSU system in 2015. So I've been doing this for a while, but when COVID came through, things changed because of the video technology, and primarily using Zoom technology.
I'm probably a product of online learning. I was, in my early education, of course, it was brick and mortar, but I am a dyslexic learner. I tell people I get very fiddly in my seats, and the one thing that they always told me was, please sit down. And I could move through them at my pace, which I think was really the excitement. A lot of online certifications. I did a lot of, and it really suited me well. It suited my thought process, and I could move through them at my pace, which I think was really the excitement for me, that I didn't have to, because I couldn't focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so sitting there through a whole course just to get a nugget, when through an online modular thing, I went at my own pace. And I could actually move through something faster than otherwise. So that was a huge eye-opener for me, and then becoming a part of the Polk industry, which is, or the Polk Institute, an amazing program of really almost like modular, because they're 4-week courses.
Wow.
Within the course.
Mm-hmm.
So you get these concentrated, teachings from people that are experts in their field, and it's absolutely brilliant to me. And coming from the outside looking in, it made perfect sense.
Like I said, I was a trainer, and that's basically how I got into virtual reality. And it was done through the military, way back in the 1980s and 1990s. I was actually the director of simulation technology for the entire Air National Guard in the United States. And we developed simulator programs, and we added virtual reality to it so that people could actually go sit in a mock cockpit and have a simulation in front of them, and they could fly combat missions on the simulator. And the North Dakota Air National Guard could fight the Wisconsin Air National Guard, or South Dakota could fight Iowa. It was real interesting in how it worked out in the dynamics, and actually the competitive nature of how all that took place. And as that program expanded, we took in a lot more of the different style missions that the Air National Guard was responsible for. So that's how I kind of got into it. And coming into the Polk Institute was kind of a natural transition for me, because I had that kind of a background. I was an educator for 20 years, so I knew how to teach. And as we got this thing rolling, and I was the director of curriculum at the time, we developed the curriculum and tailored it to individual businesses. That's who we specialize with. We take in businesses that are either in conceptual growth right now, or new businesses that are struggling and want to get to the next level. So we take them and we use Zoom and a lot of different technologies to assist them and help them on an individual basis, which kind of makes us unique. That's our hook. We deal with the individual business, not just, well, here we are standing in a classroom and here's our stuff, and if you learn, fine. If you don't, fine. No, we don't work that way. So that's how I got into this.
Well, I came from a very analog world, studying classical percussion. But of course, the tie-in to that, using technology for our students was very important. So early on, when I chaired a music department at the University of Texas in Brownsville, we did an iPad initiative. So we actually put iPads in the hands of all of our students, all of our music majors and faculty, and that really started that transformational path. But now, in a community college setting, it's really for us, it's about access, it's about high quality, it's about low cost, and it's about being fast, right? We do things quickly. Our longest program is 2 years, and we focus on short term. We focus on tying things to business and industry. So one thing that we also looked at, and this kind of harkens back to Monday morning session with digital literacy, is we partnered with Adobe, and we became the first Adobe Creative Campus in Kansas. So all of our students, faculty, staff have access to the Creative Cloud as part of our digital literacy initiative at the college. So, we're really focusing on scaling that in all kinds of, our modalities, our variety of modalities, and it's really about how we serve our students at the end of the day. As we know, there's a large range of variety and types of students we serve.
And I think that's unique in online education, is that it is tailored, right? It does see the learner as a consumer and meeting their specific needs. And whether it's a startup or a business, or if you're looking to customize a graduate degree program like an energy MBA, you can do that online. You might not be able to do that in a brick and mortar setting, right? And so it's adaptive. I think it also helps with non-traditional students. Do you find that you're working with older learners that are
absolutely
in transition in their career, and maybe that's
sure, and majority of our students are Pell eligible, so we have to find that balance for those students who are either have families or working full time, so that traditional 8 to 5 classroom schedule doesn't necessarily work for them. Transportation issues, location, all those barriers are removed when you think about access to coursework that's through online.
So 2008, I started teaching in a distance learning program at Cal State Dominguez Hills down in Carson, a suburb of Los Angeles, and it was a BA completion program. And the stories ran the gamut of people taking one semester off that became 20 years.
right.
And this was total online, so we would have students from all over the U.S. And what was interesting, they were older, like we mentioned. And one thing we know, online or distant education is not for everyone. You really have to be disciplined, and you're kind of self-teaching yourself. The professor becomes a facilitator. And in those days, prior to COVID, the lifeline was really the discussion board. So we relied heavily on the discussion board, where we put a topic out there. Usually it was no right or wrong answer, a lot of opinion-based, but it gave the students the opportunity to interact among each other. And that was really it. We did very little video, a few recordings, a few tapings, but it was primarily doing assignments and the discussion board. And I tell you, I had one student, I told her if there was ever a discussion board Hall of Fame, she would have a bust in the Hall of Fame, because the requirement was 3 posts per week, and she would average about 30 posts a week. And it wasn't like, hi, I agree with you. It was really more like, hey, Tracey, that was a great idea, but did you think of this? And she was really able to engage students.
Right. And
that's really the epitome of discussion boards, that she was able to do that. So, but online or distant education has evolved, again, because of the COVID-19 and then Zoom technology. And Zoom technology changed everything.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I know for myself, because I am not one of those people to fit into that, box of, I'm going to go to class, I'm going to do this. I do very well with the time frame, working around my world. Considering I own my own business, I have life and family and things that you take care of. So it gives you the opportunity to put it into the spaces that you can put it into and still get the education. It's brilliant stuff.
Because people thought it was either a career or education, right?
Right.
It's like once you got your bachelor's degree, it's like, well, I got to get a job, and the rest of my education is done.
Yeah.
I can never go back.
And it gives you the opportunity to be a lifelong learner.
Absolutely.
Which is brilliant.
At Polk, we do a lot of individual work. And what I mean by individual work is, yes, we require our cohort members to attend a Thursday night seminar for 2 hours. That's it during the week. So the rest of the time, when they have questions, not only are the facilitators available because they have to have office hours every week posted where the students can come in and talk to them, but then the staff also takes a lot of questions. I have cohort members emailing me a lot, even though I'm the chief operating officer. And it doesn't bother me. I'll answer questions. I put it back to them saying, did you talk to your facilitator about this question? And if you have and you couldn't get the answer, then we'll talk. But it makes it a lot more of an individual experience. I mean, most of the students, I would say 90% of the students or 95% of the students probably I've never met, except on Zoom, okay? And that's real powerful because you take a look at who we have in our cohort, which our class. We've had students from, all kinds of students from the East Coast. Currently, we have a girl from South Africa. We have one from the UK. We have some volunteer associates from the Philippines and other countries. And we just all get up on Zoom and do our thing. And it's wonderful how that works.
Yeah, and I think that, the interesting part is, we actually have students live in the dorms and they take online classes. So, but I think, part of it also is supporting those students in that environment. So you mentioned, making sure that faculty are engaged with students, but also those wraparound services like advising and tutoring and those other entities that come with that college experience that differentiates us from some of those, some of the other competitors out there that maybe, you come in and do a certificate and take a course, a self-paced course without some of that support. So I think, that's kind of the argument that I like to make is, well, those options are available. And as you mentioned, not online's for everybody. If you want to get a CDL license, you still have to, stuff to get behind the wheel
drive that truck.
of a vehicle, or you want to be certified in welding, you're still going to have to do a live weld to do that. So
is that in the old school, online was all asynchronous, where you could be on anytime you want.
that are needing it.
I wanted to add one more thing to what Tim was saying, is that in the old school, online was all asynchronous, where you could be on anytime you wanted, and that was one of the luxuries or the beauties, and Tracey's already referred to that. But with COVID-19, they came up with something else called synchronous, where you had to be online at a particular time, and that changed online a little bit, but not totally. So what we do at the Polk Institute, we have our workshops on Thursday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. But we've attracted people from the East Coast, and that makes it 9 to 11, or in the Central time, maybe 7 to 9. So that changes it just a little bit, but it's only 2 hours a week, and those who are really interested in their education, it still gives them that offer. Our first class, we had 26 companies, and we didn't plan this, but we had one in Atlanta, one in New York, one in Boston, and one in Chicago. And that really spread us out. But it really didn't, because we were there at our own time. So again, with the synchronous, you do have to be there at a certain time and place.
And also that we can leverage technology to bring in our students that are in rural populations. Being in South Central Kansas, obviously a lot of rural
That's a good
population.
point, yeah.
So we're able to bring in students, live. We call it a high flex teaching environment, to where students could be in a classroom. We're at 22 high schools, and we're at multiple locations. We're at a correctional facility. We're at an Air Force base. So we're able to feed those students together to create that opportunity where we're able to provide that educational service where we might not be able to otherwise because of distance.
And one of the other things that I think is really a great accomplishment with the Polk Institute is that everybody has a mentor as well. And I think with this online and just having the 2 hours, it seems to me there's more time for facilitators to actually spend more time with the students.
Quality time.
There's
Yes,
more
absolutely.
quality
Yes,
time, because
absolutely.
you don't have, okay, I got 10 minutes to get over here. There's none of that. It's just like, here's a time, let's meet. And it really opens up the opportunity to have more one-on-one time, even though it's virtual.
Well, and you mentioned the international clients you have. I mean, I spent a decade in international higher education, and I had to go to study abroad exhibitions in China, and I had to get on a plane and go all over the world. And there's departments and divisions of universities that are spending an enormous amount of money on staffing and travel and all these things, and all you have to do now is reach them where they are. You don't have to relocate anyone. I mean, I'm sure your dorms are great, internationals that would love to come, but you don't have to come.
You'd be surprised how many international students we have at Butler Community College that are strictly online.
No, it's strictly online, even when they come. Okay, they don't come, but that are strictly online. They still engage. No, but it is a challenge on the synchronous, because I did my PhD. I lived in Abu Dhabi, and I had 3 a.m. classes and 4 a.m. classes with the United States on the East Coast, and so it could be a challenge there. But at least I'm still able to get a degree from the United States wherever I am in the world, and I'm not. There's no barrier to me to advance my career because of my age or where I am in my life physically, and that's only because of online learning. I mean, I can't stop my life. Like you said, you have a family, you have a job. You can't stop and just go back in time. And I think online is bringing us to the future, but it's changed a lot since the pandemic. I mean, do you see a change in your business since the pandemic? You mentioned the synchronous, or are there other changes after the pandemic?
Well, I would say that from an education standpoint, prior to the pandemic, if you wanted to conduct a class and you didn't have a campus, you had to go to a hotel. We had to go to a restaurant to find some meeting space. Mm-hmm. So I think part of the way the Polk really relaunched was because I did teach online, synchronous, and I saw it work. So I said, well, we can offer this on a nonprofit basis and offer these classes on a synchronous basis, but bring people in a certain time and give them that structure without having to have the brick and mortar.
Right.
And I think that's what was a really beautiful thing. And then all of a sudden, all kinds of the SBA, SBDCs, all kinds of organizations started offering all these webinars where they used to provide seminars. And then, you don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about refreshments. You don't have to worry about lights. You don't have to worry about this. Oh, you want to have 100 people? You want to have 50? You want to have 30? No problem. And if you were trying to do that live, you had all kinds of logistical problems. So I think that's a benefit. And again, we call that post-COVID, during and post-COVID.
And I think also in terms of post-COVID, the programs don't have to be 2 years. I mean, 2 years is great for an associate's, but people want shorter programs, those 4-week programs that you offer. They want the certificate. They want, maybe it's the millennial effect, or maybe it's post-COVID. It's like, I don't want to wait to get on with my life or get on with my career.
Yeah, the Polk, it's a 40-week program.
40-week, I'm sorry.
But it's 10 4-week
10-week, 4-week classes.
Classes,
Okay.
courses.
That's
And
very manageable.
It's so manageable. I'm one of those people who's like, just give me the facts. Get me there, get me the people that I need, and if I have a question, but give me the things that I need, and forget the fluff.
Right.
Kind of stuff. That's the kind of person I am. So it really fits my personality.
We actually have a 4-phase program that we deal with. Phase 1, as Tracey was alluding to, is 10 workshops, 40 weeks. Then they have a showcase, because we teach them how to pitch. We teach them how to write a business plan. We put them out their first pitch, which is an informational pitch, and we have, of course, friends and relatives are there and those kinds of things to listen, but we also see the audience with some banker types, venture capitalist types, angels, other business professionals to listen. And these people then have a booth in the back area, and when they're done pitching, they go back to their booth, and then all of a sudden these people come up and talk to them, and all of a sudden it's networking time. And they never knew what networking time was before. And you see these people, and like I said, we don't teach young college-age kids. The people that sign up for Polk are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We get them all. And fits, like I said, fits their schedule, and that's what's important. And we take them through phase 2, where they're paired up with a mentor, and they work one-on-one with a mentor, and they have a once-a-month cross-tell seminar type thing where we bring in guest speakers to talk to issues that the cohort is having. Maybe they want to learn more about equity funding, or they want to learn more about debt funding or crowdfunding or something like that. We bring in somebody from that area, and all of a sudden, they've got instant knowledge right there. And then once they get ready and their mentor says they're ready, they go before a board, like a master's level type board that you would do your dissertation to or your thesis. And they pitch. Now they're doing a 10-minute investor quality pitch. All right. They have an executive summary set up. They've got their business plan available. And that's maybe the second time that a lot of these people have been in an actual live event, because everything else has been online up until that point. And after that, they go to phase 3, which is access to capital. And then we assist them in getting their businesses in front of financial institutions, venture capitalists, angels, other people that may have an interest in basically giving them some money to launch their businesses. And once they're up and running, we have phase 4. And phase 4 is our alumni program, where we bring these CEOs/business owners back, and they can learn from each other. And again, everybody's in a little box, like Jeopardy. Or not Jeopardy, but Hollywood Squares, if any of you are old enough to remember that television game. But it works.
But do you know what you're telling me right now? I went to an MBA in a traditional public university. None of that was offered to me. I had no real world experience. I mean, I had my own real world experience, but I sat in a classroom, and all my cohort were right out of college, and they were going into this MBA, and they were being told what was in the book, as opposed to what was in the world, and they weren't prepared. And what you're telling me in the shorter programs, that you're giving them, real world experience that could actually, if they have a great idea, maybe there is a future, that they can launch. And I think that also comes from your banking background, the private sector background. I'm privileged to be a part of a family of universities that are all online universities, founded by people that had banking history. They didn't have an educational background that said, hey, we have a different solution to offer dozens of market-relevant programs at a price that people can afford at online, where they are, and that might be a different approach than perhaps a public community college. Have you found resistance to those kind of online innovations, or?
No, not at all. I mean, I think, it kind of stemmed from, we were fortunate enough to get some federal stimulus money. So we were able to invest in infrastructure to a way that, all of our campuses now have a Wi-Fi reach, that students could come to our campus if they didn't have access, even if it was just to come to the parking lot during COVID to at least get on our network. We've shifted everything to the Oracle Cloud. So we've got vision and plans to really look at some point virtual desktop environments for our students that you can access from any type of device. You don't have to have an expensive computer or tablet. You can use your smart TV at home and get into our learning management system. We use Canvas. And then we were able to, I think our biggest challenge right now is, just our instructional design team and our awesome ed tech folks just keeping up with those transitions of courses, from that traditional face-to-face model, meeting those quality standards that we seek to have at Butler, and then shifting entire programs now. We just recently launched an entire online cybersecurity program. I mean, it's almost tripled in enrollment, just because it's such needed. That obviously cybersecurity is very important. We want to have all this access, but we want to be secure,
Right.
And it's recognized by the NSA. So we have that brand and that partnership association. So it gives us some leverage as well.
So what I wanted to add to that, though, is that what you mentioned is important. Well, we decided we wanted practitioner educators. So you could be AQ, which is academic qualified, or PQ, practitioner qualified. We decided we wanted, if you are academic, to be PQ qualified or real life. So Tracey is not an adjunct, but she has a real business. And when she talked mental fitness for entrepreneurs, she talked from a real world standpoint. It wasn't like, well, in this PowerPoint or in this book written by this person who never had a job. Right. And that's the real key to what we wanted to offer, the real world teaching, because in the entrepreneur space, it's really not so much theory and concept, it's more practical things that people have used. And we really encourage failure. But we encourage failure from a standpoint that you learn from it. If you let failure stop you, then it's not good. But if you let failure educate you, it could be the best teacher in life. And I think that's one of the things, the reason why we're successful so far is because we have people who are PQ or they have the real life experience. And when someone can say, well, tell me a story about this, they don't have to start off saying, well, conceptually, blah, 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 theoretically, blah, blah, blah.
Across, whether it's full-time faculty, adjunct faculty, or our staff, to really help, support them, involved faculty development department as well that really works with faculty across, thhether it's full-time faculty, adjunct faculty, or our staff, to really help, support them in any areas that they're struggling or they're challenged in terms of interacting online, or the pedagogy, or even just using the hardware. There's a lot to it where we weren't focusing on this 3 or 4 years ago.
And I think also people look at quality control. People think like, oh, if it's at a brick and mortar, that there's an expectation that the standards are higher, that the rigor is higher. And to me, at the end of the day, employability is a factor. And if you're not building skills that are going to help advance your career, then all you're left with is debt. With all this knowledge, but no way to apply it. And it sounds like all the things that you're talking about is applied learning. Like it's real hands-on, you're having real impact. And I think that to me, that should be just as relevant, whether you're regionally accredited, nationally accredited, or whatever your standards are, that at the end of the day, you're building skills to advance careers.
Well, and one of the funny things that I like to tell people, especially when we're talking about entrepreneurship, there's a very big difference in your mental fitness if you're thinking about climbing what I call the corporate ladder, right? You've got the corporate ladder, different climbing skills versus what I call the roller coaster of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
You're not climbing a ladder, you're on a roller coaster, so you might want to strap in, you might want to hold on and enjoy the ride, because I'm telling you, it's exciting. But you have to understand the difference between what muscles you're working. And it's a very different mindset.
So I have to add this last point that we are tuition free. When we did research prior to launching the Polk Institute, I found out that there were 15 universities that were tuition free in the United States. And I didn't know that. And in U.S. World News Report, it talked about who they were, and it turned out to be our military academies were 5 of them. So West Point, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, Coast Guard Academy, they're all tuition free. So we asked the question, why couldn't we offer a tuition free, master level, practitioner driven education in social entrepreneurship, and go to the government, go to individual donors and corporations, so our students wouldn't walk away, or our clients wouldn't walk away with a student debt. Because you may know that student debt is $1.6 trillion.
Yes.
And this article talked about the average debt was about $33,000. If you went to a private, it was over $100,000. And we know all these young people are not getting job placed. Going to the Ivies, going to a USC, or going to a Notre Dame, you get that alumni network. But in the entrepreneur world, we feel that we don't need accreditation. It really depends on the quality of the companies that we produce, and then the sales and the number of employees that they can have, and that'll be our accreditation.
People talk about academic rigor, okay? What we do is practical rigor. We introduce real life, real proven, I don't know what to call them, techniques, there we go, that's a good word. There we go. And those things, and that's what we deal with. We don't deal with academic rigor, that conceptually this should work. Well, no. I've been in, yeah, I've been in business for X amount of years. I'm the facilitator. I've been doing this for 30 years. Here's what worked for me. It can work for you. It may not work for you, but at least you can discover on your own what does work and what doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, hey, it's okay. You just pivot and go in a different direction, and we will help you do that until you find something that works. As we all know, entrepreneurship is a blood sport, okay? It's vicious. And if you don't know your stuff and you don't have that practical rigor to back it up, you're going to get eaten alive by the sharks out there. And so we try to help our cohort members, our businesses, to have the arsenal they need in their quiver to be able to be there and stay on top and not get eaten up by the sharks.
Well, I would say we take a very similar but maybe a different approach. We all of our workforce, our continuing ed, our workforce program, CTE programs are everyone has an advisory committee made up of local business or industry. So, they're the ones helping us decide what those learning outcomes or what that rigor needs to be. There's also the technology that scrubs job descriptions in those industries and distills those so we can see, are those embedded in our course syllabi and our learning outcomes. So we're trying in real time, obviously higher ed sometimes can move a little slow, but I'd say community colleges are as nimble as they come, and we can shift pretty quickly. So we try our best to align with business industry. Not quite maybe as the blood sport that you're referring to, but we do our best to serve the communities that support us and fund us as well. So we have 4 kind of tiers of funding. We have our student tuition and fee, which I think it is low. I mean, we do our best to keep that cost to a minimum. We have our local tax assessment. We do have state funding, and we have federal funding as well.
I think you mentioned before that you have some international clients that you're actually in those courses together, and I think that that's incredibly valuable. In fact, my dissertation was on the role of cultural intelligence and leadership style for expatriate managers. For people like, I'm living in UAE, why is it that someone with a Harvard MBA comes to Dubai and fails, right? They come in with this mentality of, I went to the Ivies, I know brick and mortar, I know how things operate in management because I read it in a book. And they come and they don't understand that there are other cross-cultural competencies, there's a different approach to reaching people in different markets. And I think perhaps online kind of breaks through those barriers where you can kind of engage international people, or even, like you said, state to state in terms of the guard, but you're having more, I think, more engagement domestically and internationally than you might have brick and mortar.
Yeah, and I use our athletics, our student athletics, our student fine arts, our livestock judging team gets students from all over the world even. So, that brings students to campus for that experience. But again, not all students, we don't just serve students on campus in a brick and mortar situation. We serve our students, we meet them where they're at. So if where they're at is they're in South Africa and they want to take an online class with us, we meet them there.
No, that's wonderful. And I think the one thing the challenge that we face as a university is how do we customize our programs? You mentioned the shorter term, you mentioned the 40 weeks and those 4-week classes. Is that the future? I mean, looking forward, we're post-COVID, we're post-pandemic. How do we reach this generation that is now used to getting things piecemeal or kind of more according to their schedule and according to their time, but in a way that really gets them where they need to go? Because there's a point where you might overcompensate or over-accommodate people and not having standards, right? Do you keep that accountability? Or, I mean, it's like there's a give and take, but how do you maintain that I guess that standard?
That's a good question. I think that I was here the other day and one of the presenters talked about the I generation, and we talked about Gen Z and being the digital generation. And so the fact that we're doing things online, digital, I think that suits them. But if you really want to grow a business, it's going to be a journey, and it's not going to be easy. And Tim mentioned blood. So what we want to teach is that you may be an overnight success, but it could take you 20 years. Because if you really want to grow a business, it's going to be a journey, and it's not going to be easy. And Tim mentioned blood sport. Well, if you understand baseball, 3 out of 10, you're Hall of Fame, but 7 times you fail.
Right.
So you're going to fail more than you succeed. And I'll tell someone in a minute, you could do everything I tell you and still fail, because that's the nature of business. What we want to do is we want to find people that are coachable, that are willing to listen to other ways and ideas. We want to find people that have grit, that are not quitters, because you can't be a quitter. If you're coachable, you're probably open to lifelong learning. You got to learn every day. And then I think the final thing is you really have to understand that when you do fail, what do you learn from it? And maybe the failure becomes a blessing in disguise. One of my favorite things is where the entrepreneur failed 20 and got it right on number 21. Well, that takes perseverance, that takes grit. And if you don't have those kinds of qualities, you really shouldn't do it. So maybe some people want to do a side hustle, as they call it, and do a hobby. Well, at the Polk Institute, well, we're looking for people that want to grow a business that has sales of $1 million or more in the next 3 to 5 years. Stanford University did a research, and they found that 97% of Hispanic-owned businesses have sales less than $1 million. 97%. Wow. That was amazing. And I think if we had black-owned businesses and asked the same question, it'd be a similar number. And Stanford said it was because of lack of access to capital. Well, that's partly true. I read another book that said timing is all important, but I really think it's lack of getting the right help. And again, I don't want to make this just Polk Institute, et cetera, but we want to provide that right help. But still, at the same time, you got to be realistic to know that you could fail. So our mission is to serve social entrepreneurs to help make a world a better place. And our vision is to help launch 1,000 social entrepreneurships by 2032. Well, if we launch 1,000, 700 could fail.
Right.
Now, with our expertise, maybe we get that number up to maybe only 600 fail. But that means we have 400 success. And if they're growing up to 1 million to maybe, once you get to 1, you figure out, okay, I can get to 3 to 5 million. Once you get to 5 million, you figure, oh, this is what it takes to get to 10. And that's really it. And so business is hard. We have the pandemic can knock you out. A recession can knock you out. What else? Terrorism can knock you out. Weather can knock you out, Hurricane Katrina. But at the same time, you have other companies that are starting. So with the pandemic, I think the SBA said 65% of businesses stopped and about 35 won't come back. But at the same time, it was more American businesses started than ever in American history coming out of the pandemic. We had something called the Great Resignation, where people realized that capitalism really about a profit and not a paycheck. And I think that's the key thing. But failure is part of it. And you would be not genuine to tell someone, do business and you're going to succeed and you're going to be a gazillionaire, because it doesn't work like that. But you want to be that 30% that finds what we call financial freedom. And I think that's the real key.
Well, and you're looking for life outcomes, not just learning outcomes, right? You're looking for how is this going to help you professionally for the rest of your life, not, oh, you're going to get this piece of paper and you have a degree. Because the degree is the starting line. It's not an achievement. I mean, it's great to finish a degree, and I'm obviously supporting people to get advanced degrees, but what I love about our program is that we have working professionals going to our school. So we don't have traditional students that don't have that grit that you talk about. They have it, and they're hungry, and they're at a change. They're coming out of the military, they're coming and doing these other transitions, and they need this next step to move in their career, and they're hungry. And that hunger is important, because you find a lot of international students that come to the United States, before they have their first class, they've gone 7,000 miles from anything familiar. They're going to a country that doesn't speak their language, and they've risked a lot financially and perhaps their family's finances to come here. The United States, you risk nothing, and you get up and you go to school in a traditional brick and mortar, and you think you're entitled to something. They're entitled to much more than you.
Yeah, and in community colleges, of course, we're guilty because we feel like we want to help everybody.
Absolutely.
So we have 1 day parts of term, we have 4 week, we have 5 week, we have 8 week, we have 12 week, we have 16-week classes. We do apprenticeships. We're an intermediary for the state of Kansas to do apprenticeships. We do short-term training. We do workforce training. You name it. If there's a problem, we'll help you solve it, and that's what we're good at it. We love it, and please reach out to us.
Absolutely, that's great. No, what do you think that might be a pitfall going forward, though, in terms of our programs, in terms of online learning? Is there a risk that we've reached that we're at such a time that we're looking to people to go back to traditional brick and mortar, or is that gone? Have we broken through brick and mortar forever, or?
No, I don't think so. No, I think there's a balance, and again, I think it goes back to the
like a hybrid,
sure.
Well, for instance, there's a hybrid in your work environment. Like you go in for 2 days, or you go home for 3 days.
Yes.
I mean, that seems like maybe that's the future.
I did 400 emails sitting here today listening to sessions. So.
Well, that's all that I have. But if anybody has any questions, we'll open it up to you all for any questions you may have. Oh, we're out of time? Oh, well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you all. Safe travels.